POC Network here with another unboxing, this time coming from the company OBSBOT, and this is the Tiny 2 AI-powered PTZ 4K webcam. And yeah, PTZ, that means pan, tilt, zoom. It does a lot of things, and it is a follow-up from the company's previous model, the Tiny 4K. And so technically this is the Tiny 4K 2, but they call it the Tiny 2 instead. That does 4K. And it has with it some enhanced operation. The Tiny 4K was actually a fantastic camera. It had automatic pan, tilt, zoom, and it had gestures, which is really nice, where you can tell it to zoom in by doing various hand gestures like this, or tell it to start tracking you by just holding up your hand like this at a 90-degree angle, and you can walk around and the camera follows you. It's a fantastic product. Now the company's one-up that by coming out with the Tiny 2, which does that and more. This too comes with auto tracking and zoom, as well as auto framing. It has a faster track capability, about 4 times as fast as the 4K, or Tiny 4K, or previous model. And the gesture control is considered gesture control 2.0 because they've enhanced it to make it work better. But it also comes with some additional features, as I said, and one of the biggest additional features is it has voice control now. It does a lot of things with your voice. You can do things as simple as just saying, "Hi, Tiny," and it automatically turns on and faces you. And you can tell it to go to sleep. You can say, position 1, position 2, if you have various different scenes programmed in there in terms of which position and like defaults to what, as well as things like track me. And when you say, "Hey, track me," it automatically locks onto you. It's the same thing as holding up your hand like this. And then you can tell it to let you go as well and do some other things. I've seen it live in action at NAB in Las Vegas this year, just a few months ago, and it performed quite well. Even despite all of the crazy sound, the noise that was in the show. I mean, it's an exhibit floor after all, and yet it was still working. I mean, just imagine having that at home or in your office. It also has some additional features like beauty mode, and with beauty mode, it kind of smooths up the skin and brightens up the eyes. It's kind of like your typical phone filters you'd see in like some of your favorite social networks, where people post way too many selfies of themselves. It just beautifies you to make you look better and get rid of any of that, the discrepancies that might exist in your face. But you do have that option if you want it, and it's controllable via the app or the remote, I believe. There is an optional remote here that also comes with it, so that in itself, it has multiple ways of controlling it as well. You have app control, you have remote control, you have gesture control, you got voice control. There's a lot of control when it comes to getting the best frame or image or zoom or whatever you need out of this camera. It also offers OSC protocol and SDK protocol support for integration with other applications. It also has something called a laser whiteboard mode, which is kind of cool. And let's say you're doing a demonstration or you're just having a conference with some of your coworkers and you're trying to explain something to them or your boss, you can have a whiteboard around you and you take the remote and just kind of circle that area that you want to focus on, and or you can actually just tell it. There's a button on here. If you double tap it, it actually has a picture of a whiteboard on it with a little red dot in there. If you double tap that, it'll automatically detect a whiteboard in your vicinity. It also works with like giant sheets of white paper, so if you have a flip chart or something, but it'll be able to detect that whiteboard or flip chart and zoom in on it. And I mean, that's a neat feature, so it's kind of having different positions right there, like you're switching between cameras with a little switcher or something, but instead you're just using a remote here to be able to trigger that and or the application on your PC. It also has a neat sleep mode, which is kind of cool. You can trigger sleep via various different ways. You can even tell it to go to sleep with your voice. You can use a remote or the app, or you can just take it and just manually turn or rotate the camera downward, and that'll trigger sleep mode. When that happens, it'll just black out the screen by default, but you can actually adjust that to a still image or a video if you want. So if you are in a conference or you're doing something fun, you're like, "I'll be right back," and you tell it to go to sleep with the app or the remote, or you just spin it down, it'll automatically just fade out to whatever you select. So you could have a "we'll be right back" animation playing or something like that, something goofy, anything you want. And that's kind of pretty much the privacy mode that you get out of this by using its sleep mode if you need to just, turn it off really quick while not disconnecting from your call. And I believe the voice command is just simply "sleep, Tiny." and that tells it to go to sleep. Pretty sure. Yes, sleep tiny. So that, and I believe I'm missing something. Oh, the sensor, the actual sensor that's in the camera is bigger. It's actually a 1 by 1.5 inch CMOS sensor inside, so you're getting a little bit of a bigger sensor for a better picture, and it can be mounted in various different ways too. You know, you can mount it directly sitting on your table or your desk, you can have it mounted on top of your monitor, or you can tripod mount it as well. All of this for an MSRP of $299, which is pretty decent for a webcam that should rock your world. Hopefully, that's the point, right? And we will be testing it shortly, but first what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this up, we're gonna see what's in there, what does it come with, what does it physically look like, and then we'll do a demo. But the first thing you come across is a little insert here, or just a little tray, we'll call it, that has your documentation inside. And of that documentation, you have a warranty policy and a user manual that is in multiple different languages here. And it's not bad. It's literally just about 8 or so pages. That's all in English right there. And that's all you have to read when it comes to getting to know your camera. A lot of it is self-explanatory, but some of it you're definitely going to want to follow up on in the instructions to better understand how your product works. And then you have the camera itself that is tucked away in this cool little semi-hard shell case to make sure you can travel with it without hurting it. That case has a little loop here so you can carry it around. Inside you have the camera, and it's webcam, so it's simple. You got a USB cable, you have your webcam, and you have a stand, and this looks like an adapter. Simple. And starting with the adapter, it is simply just a USB 3.0 to USB 3.1 adapter, so USB-C, because that's what the camera's going to be. And look, I'm guessing the cable, yep, the cable is USB-C to USB-C, so this will easily work with laptops, computers, or anything else that's able to take a webcam using USB or USB-C. Now, of course, some of the features that you have in this camera may not be compatible with certain products that can't install the full software, but then again, you can use your voice, you can use your hand gestures, you can use the remote control if you want to get the remote control. There are other ways of operating some of the features on this camera, but some may or may not be compatible with things outside of like Windows or Mac, for example, tablets. But this is the camera. It's tiny. Literally, they're not kidding around. When they call this the Tiny 2 4K, it is literally tiny. It is a small little pan tilt zoom camera turned into a webcam. Even smaller, I believe, than, smaller than the first 4K model. And I mean, this is pretty impressive. It has a decent weight to it. The base is most of the weight, so that way it isn't a tip hazard or anything as it's moving around. You have the little base here, and this is going to be for setting it on your monitor. And this just simply goes to the back of your monitor. You're facing it, and it's magnetic, so all you have is just this metal flap here and sticks right to it. You're done. So that way it can come on and off. You can move it and bring it down over here or something if you decide to move it during your video, and or if you just like to move it around your office or your home quickly. It easily comes on and off the base here. And again, it also has the tripod threads on the bottom, so you can put this on a tripod if you want. And then there's no physical buttons or anything else. Again, on the back you have a USB-C type connection here, and that's what connects it to your computer. As for the remote control, you are probably going to want to get the remote control, but maybe that's just user preference. Again, you can use the app on your computer, you can use your voice, you can use your gestures, but the remote is here in case you need it. You have a little breakdown of instructions in terms of what button does what on the remote, and then you have the remote. Now, it's a nice, sleek remote. It's a multi-color tone remote. It's a gray body. Looks like it's nothing too special about the body of the remote. It takes 2 AAA batteries to operate the remote, and you have all your buttons here. You have your power button right here at the top. You have this 1, 2, 3, and 4. That is a device selection, so if you have multiple. And then you have P1, P2, P3. These are your presets. So when you say position 1, position 2, position 3, this is what you're referring to. And then you have a directional pad with select. You have up and down here, and that's probably going to be for zoom and volume and things like that. Mostly zoom, actually, I believe. Yeah, just zoom. Just zoom. It actually says zoom on there. And then you have your track, so you can turn on or turn off track. Same thing as holding up your hand like this. You have your close-ups. You can zoom in on yourself. And then you have your hand gesture button here. This disables hand gestures. You have this little button here. That's the one with the whiteboard with a little red dot in there. That's what triggers focusing on a webboard behind you. You have some page up, page down, and a hyperlink select button here, as well as a desk mode, which I believe will cause it to focus downwards at your desk so you can show off something in front of you, which is also something we've seen in some new webcams lately, including one that was from BenQ. But that's it. It's an easy remote control. The software is really going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting if you really want some advanced options to play with there. It does work well with, different things like Skype and Zoom and OBS Studio and anything out there that takes a webcam as a video source. And then, of course, you can use their software if necessary to do some of these things, as well as, again, it has OSC and SDK support, so you might be able to bring some of that functionality into OBS and some of these other applications as well, but that's up in the air. You might need some third-party plugins or something from the community to be able to fully make that happen. Maybe. But really, this is an exciting camera. For $300, it's tiny, but it does a lot of things. And it is tiny. It's the tiny, too. So what we're going to do now is we're going to connect it. We're probably just going to grab a laptop. We're going to connect it to a laptop. We're going to see if there's any firmware updates that we got to go through or anything. And then we're going to see what it looks like. So let's just fast forward through all the boring stuff and go straight to what it looks like.
So now we have the camera hooked up to a laptop, and we're actually just recording this using Windows Camera. It's a simple app that comes with Windows and allows you to record using your webcam or any other USB connected camera device or any other camera device that Windows recognizes as a camera. And we are using this software specifically because we started off using OBSBOT software, which was really good. It is so filled with features. It's pretty cool. But that's where you get your beauty options and everything else. It also has a background blur option. There's a lot going for it. However, we did find that in its current state, it does have some lag, some latency in there if you start using any of those effects. So right now, we're just trying to focus on the quality of the camera. This is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like, and some of the various different controls that we have for it. So again, you have multiple ways of controlling this camera. You can do your voice, you can do it via gestures, you can do it via the remote, and you can do it via the software. I can go to the console tab and I can click on certain things like close-up, which I'm already in a close-up kind of, but that also triggers tracking, I believe. Yes, so I had tracking turned off. That's why I was cut off on the head. Forgot to mention that. And you have headless mode, which focuses on this, on my awesome busy shirt here that you technically shouldn't be wearing when recording anything on the camera, but I did that specifically because I knew today we were going to be playing with this. So I chose this before coming into work so that we can see what a busy shirt looks like on the camera and see if that messes with the camera at all or the software. But so far it seems to be looking pretty good. So that was just an extra test to put it through. Its ability to zoom in and out and do various different presets and everything can be controlled from the app, such as whiteboard. I don't have a whiteboard behind me, unfortunately, so I can't really demonstrate that. But it does, we've noticed, think that because the TV is the same size or the rectangular shape of a whiteboard, it thinks, that is the whiteboard. Of course, you have the little laser. If you click the button, the whiteboard button with a single and just press and hold it, you get this cool little laser. So you can point it and say, see Exhibit A over here that talks about yada yada. Or you can double click it and it's going to automatically try to figure out, what is the whiteboard? And there it is. It thinks that the screen behind me is the whiteboard and I'm just in the way. So if I get out of the way, it's not really going to track me because it thinks, why would I track this guy? Because I'm looking at the whiteboard behind him that he's rudely standing in front of or sitting in front of. But if that whiteboard is off to my side, instead it would focus over to that instead of the TV behind me, which is pretty cool. Of course, I just told it to zoom in, and, which gets to the gesture controls. We'll set it up at just the close-up here. So again, you have multiple different ways of controlling this camera. You have the remote, which we've been playing with a little bit here. You can control some of the movements going back and forth, up and down, left and right. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. You have the track mode, you have the laser thing. I can double click it to activate presenter mode, or not presenter mode, but whiteboard mode, as well as some other neat options. Now it goes beyond that by using your voice. So you can say, hey, track me. And now it's in track mode, and it's going to track everywhere I go. If I go up and down, left, right, whatever I do, it's going to focus on me. If I go really fast, it's going to speed it up a little bit depending on how far I go. If I go running off over there, it's going to move a little bit faster. But it definitely has a lot of potential in its track mode for YouTubers and various different vodcasts or anything else, like if you have a cooking tutorial, makeup tutorial, or anything like that, or anything where you might, makeup, you're probably not going to be moving around. But cooking, you're going to be moving around the kitchen. This will track you, and it does a really good job of that. You can use other voice commands, like telling it to go in the privacy mode. Like I said, you can just say, sleep tiny. And when I said, hi, Tiny, it came back. And you can customize that background image. We took it away from the default to the video because it was kind of cool. So it gives you an idea of what a video background would look like when you put it in a privacy mode or sleep mode. But again, you can customize that to whatever you want. And when you put it in a privacy or sleep mode like that, it literally cuts off the camera. So if you're talking to somebody online and you're like, I got to go for a second, say you got to use the restroom or something, you can tell it to sleep, walk away. They cannot see or hear you. All they get is whatever you defaulted it to. And then, of course, again, you can use your voice to select position 1. Right now it's blinking, letting me know that I chose position 1. Of course, I haven't customized any of the positions, so no matter what position I say, it's where it's pointing right now. But if I had different angles set up, it would switch between those simply by saying that. And of course, as you can tell, I paused a little bit before saying anything, and that's because sometimes it has a hard time understanding you if you just kind of do a runoff right into one of your commands after talking, kind of like when you're talking to a human being and you don't give enough space in there to transition to the next sentence, they might get a little confused. So, it's no wonder that the webcam might also get confused. So sometimes it's good to just stop and say your command. So that way it can hear you clearly. And the app actually shows you everything if you go into More and you scroll down to where it will list various different voice commands. You can see it says, hi, Tiny, sleep tiny, track me, unlock me, zoom in closer, zoom out further, position 1, 2, or 3. So you have all these options you can do. You can say, unlock me. Now it's blinking and it goes to green, from blue to green. Blue means it's tracking, green means it's just in normal mode. It's not tracking now. If I stop, track me. Now it's blinking and it's shooting to blue, or transitioning over to blue, and now it's tracking me. You can say, zoom in closer. Zoom out further. All of that using your voice. No remote needed in case the remote is cost separate or you want to keep your hands free. Let's say they're both dug into a bowl of pizza dough or something. You can just use your voice and zoom in, zoom out, track, or stop tracking, or anything else. Well, not anything else, but a lot of the most common commands using your voice, which is quite helpful. And then you have your gestures. You don't get a lot of gestures. You only have a few. You have the one that triggers or turns off track me. So when I did this, now it's blinking and went to green. It's no longer tracking me. If I do it again, now it's to blue. Now it's tracking me. The other option is zoom. You just hold your hand out like this and it zooms in on you, and that's all the way, or not all the way, but it just kind of does a closer shot. So it's more of a close-up of your face. Do it again, zooms out. Now you can control that zoom with a variable zoom by holding up your hands like this. So now it's blinking and it's telling me, hey, I'm watching. And you can just, it's like you're stretching something. You just bring your hands away or close to each other, and that triggers the zoom and a manual ratio. So depending on how far you bring your hands to each other. I obviously didn't just do it there because I didn't trigger it first and then go. But it works really good. As you can see, it's very smooth and very responsive. And so that way you can just say, okay, you know what? I just need you to zoom in on my face just a little bit more so you can see how serious I am. And then, of course, put your hands up and zoom back out, drop your hands, and it comes out of the recognition mode. And always when it's reacting to you, let it be from any kind of gestures or from your voice, it's going to blink the status light on the front of the camera so you know that it's working. But again, we're using the Windows camera app to do this. So this is what it would look like in just about any other app when you're not using their app to record. So the OBSBOT webcam app is pretty much a control center for all of your various different features of the camera when you're not using the remote, the gestures, or your voice. So there's a lot going for this app. There's a lot going for the remote. There's a lot going for this camera. This is a fantastic camera. And the latencies and anything else we discovered in the app, that is specifically to the Windows app itself. It is up to date, but obviously this is a new product and they have a lot to work on still, possibly on the back end of the software, which can easily come out in software updates because some of these features work just fine in other programs. If I switch the background blur to Zoom, for example, it's going to be like any other webcam. It's being processed by Zoom. Webcam software is not going to notice a difference. So it's just when you're using that control through the OBSBOT webcam software, you might get latency. And that was the biggest one for us, was the background blur is completely unusable at the moment. So it's not quite ready yet software-wise, but the camera, the remote, and its ability to interact with other applications is definitely there. There's so much potential with this camera. For $300, it seems like a great product, especially if the company continues to support their software, which we can only assume they will based on how they've done so far with their previous products. They're a pleasure to speak with. We interacted them again with at NAB in Las Vegas. It was a great conversation. We've interacted with them in person before at other show floors. They've just been a complete pleasure to talk to, and they absolutely love and believe in their product. So that's always a good thing. So again, this is the OBSBOT Tiny 2 AI-powered pan tilt zoom, or just PTZ 4K webcam with a lot of features. We're in 4K right now, 30 frames per second. That's the max resolution of this camera. It can do 60 frames per second and 1080 if you choose to go down to 1080. But this is the camera. This is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like. Of course, if you're going to use this professionally, use a microphone. Don't use its microphone. Webcam microphones are never good for using for professional uses or for vlogging or anything else. If you're a streamer, it's only there for when you're communicating, in a conference with employees or at school or anything else. When you're in a webcam or just a web conference, that's fine. But if you're using this to actually shoot video with, then get a real microphone like we were using before. It'll sound better. But for what it is, it does sound good. Just make sure that you've upgraded the firmware and upgraded the software, so that way you don't get any discrepancies. But there you have it. We'll have more information in the description below, as well as links to find the product, as well as a link to the full review. We've been testing this camera for a while, but by the time you see this video and by the time that review launches, we'll probably have been testing this for over a week. So we'll definitely know what we like or don't like about it. And we'll include all of that in the story. All of that will be available, again, at POCnetwork.net. And we'll have that information, that link in the description, again, including where you can buy the camera. If you liked what you've seen here, don't forget to subscribe and follow us. Click that like button and let us know you like this video. And definitely make use of the comment section in case you have any questions or just simple chatter with us, with each other, and or even maybe the manufacturer if they're watching. As always, we thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
If you want to stay on top of all the latest and greatest, and or at least the gadgets we cover, remember to subscribe right here. Subscription button. Click it. You're going to want to. There's lots of videos, interviews, previews, all sorts of stuff. Button. Click it.